everyone, my name's Amanda and I'm the Fun Size Reader. Today I'm going to be wrapping up my month of April for you and talking about everything that I read, mostly briefly because I read 11 books this month, so I'm going to try to go through them quick, and for those of them that I don't really talk a ton about, I'm probably going to have another video or there's reviews posted on my Instagram if you want more details. So let's get started. This month I participated in what's called the Magical Readathon on Instagram, and basically it's a Harry Potter themed readathon where you choose a career, and based on your career you have to pass your O.W.L.s, which was really cool. It was a super fun concept. It was fun picking out like what books I needed. So I chose the healer career, which of course had 8 books that I needed to read. So I knew I was going to be reading a lot. I chose a bunch of books based on the O.W.L.s that I needed to pass, aka finish reading. They had different requirements for each class. So the first book that I picked was The Queen's Assassin, and this one was for my History of Magic O.W.L. because it had a topic about magic. The Queen's Assassin I really enjoyed. It was my first read of the month and it went really, really quick for me. It really felt like, if anybody's read the Dance of Thieves duology, it really felt like those characters, the Jace and Kazi kind of playing back and forth, enemies to lovers type story. I read it really quickly. It went really fast for me. I definitely would recommend this for anybody who did like Dance of Thieves, or if you've read this and you haven't read Dance of Thieves, definitely check that out. The Queen's Assassin, 4 stars for me. The next one that I read was for my Muggle studies, and it was supposed to be some sort of contemporary book, so told from a Muggle's perspective. For that, I read Always Never Yours by, I call him Wibroka because their names are very, very long, but it's by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca, and they're a married couple. Their books are amazing. They're really fun, and I really enjoyed this book. So it's kind of a modern retelling of a Romeo and Juliet story, and I've heard a lot of feedback from it that people didn't like it because they thought that the main character, Megan, was too impulsive, not really relatable, so boy-focused and sex-focused, and I was like, after I finished it, duh, people, it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Of course she's gonna be boy crazy and making stupid decisions and rushing into relationships. That's what Romeo and Juliet is all about. So I really liked it. I thought it was a great retelling, a great way for people to really get the essence of what you're supposed to get out of Romeo and Juliet in a modern way. Always Never Yours for Muggle Studies, 4 stars. For my Defense Against the Dark Arts O.W.L., I had to read something that took place near the sea or near water. So I decided to read The Girl the Sea Gave Back by Adrienne Young. And I want to preface this by saying I loved Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. Loved it. I literally gave it to my sister to read this month because I told her she had to read it. It was one of those that sat on my shelf forever. And then I finally picked it up and said, why didn't I read this book sooner? So this was supposed to be not really a book 2 for that, but it was the same characters many years later with a different main character focus. And it did not hit well for me at all. I found myself not caring and feeling like there wasn't truly a story in there. It was just kind of like extra. And I just thought it was a waste of time, personally. I gave it 2 stars. I know there's some people that really liked it, but I had to drag myself through it because I wanted to complete the Defense Against the Dark Arts section. So, The Girl the Sea Gave Back, 2 stars, but definitely 100% go read Sky in the Deep. For charms, we had to read a book with a white cover, so I picked Warcross by Marie Lu, and I really liked this book. It was very much Ready Player One vibes. It was futuristic and video games. It really made me want to go play Mario Kart or Super Smash afterwards because it's this competition gaming and it's so vibrant and real, but everything is like virtual reality. So my one drawback to this book was that it took a lot of time to get the story introduced because you had to build this whole world of this new gaming system And once that happened and the competition actually started, I was so into it. So a little slow in the beginning, but really liked it and definitely want to read book 2. Warcross by Marie Lu, 4 stars. Transfiguration was a hard owl to pick a book for me because I had already read everything on my shelves, I thought, that had transforming into a different being. So I had to get a recommendation from the actual Magical Readathon system on some suggestions. And I had this on my contemporary shelf, but it's kind of really fantasy, and I didn't know that. My Lady Jane was what I picked for Transfiguration because one of the main characters turns into a horse. I had no idea. The Janie's series is kind of a different take on old stories or history with Janes in them. So My Lady Jane is the first one, and it's about the cousin of King Henry. I can't remember what number, but there's a twist on the story where in England you have the non-magical people and the magical people that turn into animals. So Jane gets married off to her husband, who turns into a horse during the day. So yes, Transfiguration. It was a fun book. It was really funnily written. The writing style is really modern and jokey, and they definitely made some tangled jokes in there, but it was really long. That was my drawback to it, is I was kind of just ready for it to be wrapping up at the end, but it was cute. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it if you needed a lighthearted, fun laugh and you didn't mind that it was a little bit longer. So My Lady Jane for Transfiguration, 3 stars. For Herbology, we had to read a book that started with the letter M. This one was also hard because My Lady Jane was my original choice for that. And then I couldn't find a Transfiguration book, so I had to do some swapping around. So I ended up with Miracle Creek, which had been sitting on my Book of the Month shelf for a very long time, despite hearing amazing things about it. And this one was really good. It's kind of a courtroom drama mystery that's kind of told back and forth about a family who owns a submarine company where they do oxygen therapy, low pressure oxygen therapy for children or people with chronic disease. And it's kind of an experimental treatment. But the storyline is that the submarine blows up and ends up killing some of the patients. And so you spend the whole story trying to figure out essentially what happened, who was responsible, was it malicious, was it an accident? So it was really good. I thought it was really, really well written, and I really liked that the perspectives of the characters were very different from perspectives that you see normally. I really appreciated the insight that the book gave. I did, once I got about 2/3 of the way done, I was like, I just want to know who did it. I just want to know what happened. So I kind of rushed through the ending a little bit just because I needed to get there. But definitely recommend if you like that courtroom drama type book. So Miracle Creek, 4 stars. For Care of Magical Creatures, I had to read a book with a beak on the cover. Now I have a ton of these on my shelf, but as the month was coming on and I had already had my set number of books, which is not normally how I read during the month, I was getting pretty tired. So I switched to one of the beak books that was shorter so that I could get through it faster and go back to reading not planned out. So I read For Care of Magical Creatures, An Enchantment of Ravens, and I didn't like it. It wasn't for me. It had that same storyline that I've complained about in the past of just traveling, and the story kind of happens on this journey, and I just didn't think it was good enough. I didn't connect with the characters. I didn't connect with the love story, but I forced myself to read it because I needed to finish this owl, and I didn't want to pick up one of the bigger books that I had with beaks on the cover. So An Enchantment of Ravens, 2 stars for me. My last book for the Magical Readathon was Potions, which had to be a book that was under 150 pages, which is really hard. It's really hard to find that on my shelf. So I had to go back to my parents' house and look at all of my younger life, childhood books. And I found one that I had read a long time ago, but I hadn't read it in a really long time, and I wanted to read it again. So I read Tuck Everlasting, which is 139 pages. And I looked at this book when I picked it up and remembered when this was like a big deal for me to finish this book. I remembered being so intimidated that it was bigger, and now I just kind of laughed because I read it in, an afternoon. But it was just as good as I remembered. And I honestly wonder sometimes why this is a kid's book and not an adult's book, because it's just about life and about family and love and living life to the fullest and not getting stuck. And it was interesting that I read it during quarantine, and I felt like it was a really good time to reread Tuck Everlasting, especially when there's such a volatile time and people are trying to focus on being grateful and good things that are happening in their life. So definitely recommend picking this one up if you've never read it or if you need to revisit it. So Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, 4 stars. Okay, so that's the end of my Magical Readathon, and I was able to take a big deep breath and go back to reading with my mood like I always do. So along with that, my Faraway Friends book club pick was my pick for this month, and I picked The Best Laid Plans by Cameron Lund. And I wanted to have a big shout out to Penguin Teen, who sent me this finished copy for the book. I was so excited. It fit perfectly with my book club, so I could not wait to read this. And this was my only 5-star of the month. I freaking loved this book. I could not put it down. I had to stop myself from reading the whole thing in one sitting because I was running the book club, so I needed to stay on pace with it, but I loved it. And this is one that I feel like deserves its own video, so I'm gonna record that today as well. The Best Laid Plans, 5 stars. For my other book club, the Fun Size Book Club, I chose to read The Guest List, which is not out yet, but it was available with Book of the Month. And it is Lucy Foley's, I think it's her second book. I haven't read the first, The Hunting Party, yet because it wasn't available when I wanted to go get it, and then quarantine hit and I couldn't get it from my bookstore, and I just haven't gotten it yet. But I really liked this book. We all read it as a buddy read in my book club, and it's suspenseful, but it's not scary. It's one of those that's written in an Agatha Christie kind of style where there's a murder mystery and you don't know who did it and what's going on. And the book is really good about leading you through that until the very end. Literally, the very end is when you figure out what the heck happened. So it keeps you engaged, and I feel like it's one that benefits from reading it very quickly, and it was very easy to read. So definitely recommend getting this one. The Guest List, 4 stars. My last read of the month was actually a buddy read with a group of Instagrammers, and it was For All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. And just look at this cover. It's gorgeous. I wanted to read it. It's got pirates and mermaids and just fantasy goodness. I really liked reading this book, but I will recommend it's not one that really should be split up into smaller portions. I thought it would have benefited from me reading it a lot faster than I did because I read it in the 40-page increments that were given for the book club. And I think I would have been more like gung-ho and into the story if I had read it straight through all the way. That being said, I do want to see what happens in the next one. The cover was just released. I just posted that on my page yesterday. Definitely enjoyed it. All the Stars and Teeth, 4 stars. Overall, I had a pretty decent month. I was really happy with a lot of the reads. Didn't like some of them, but that's the way it goes. You never know what you're gonna like and what you're not. So thanks for watching. And if you want to chat more about books, you can find me on Instagram at The Fun Size Reader, Facebook at The Fun Size Reader, and on Twitter at Fun Size Reader. See you guys next time.